Cinemasins has a fan club. It's called the Sin Club, and members get all sorts of things like early episodes, bonus videos, merch discounts, and even monthly bonus podcasts. Membership starts at $3 a month, and you can sign up now at patreon.com/cinemasins.
Good. I wanted you to cry.
Oh my God. I knew it. As soon as I was doing it, I was like, oh yeah, he wants this.
Yeah.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined by Barrett Scher.
Hello.
And Jonathan Watkins.
Hello.
Today we have a very special guest. It's writer-director David Freyne, who has done a movie called Dating Amber. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you very much. And actually, I should stress it's coming out now on November the 10th.
All right, November 10th it is. This movie is about a gay teen in what we would call high school. Is that what you would call it out there? What do you call it out there?
We call it secondary school.
Secondary school. Okay. So it's a gay teen in secondary school who finds a lesbian friend to pretend date so that they can cover their sexuality to everybody else. And put on this sort of show for everyone, basically. How much of this movie is autobiographical?
Kind of a tragically large amount of it is autobiographical.
Oh, no.
So I grew up where the film's set, just outside Dublin in Ireland. And I grew up kind of around the time of the film, a little bit later, which is set in the 90s. And yeah, I really struggled, like a lot of people, coming to terms with my sexuality. And I had a friend in school who later turned out to be a lesbian. And it was in hindsight, we thought, God, our lives would have been so much easier if we just pretended to go out for a year or two. And that was where the idea of the film came from. But a lot of the really embarrassing things that happened in the film, a lot of the, the big struggling scenes with my family, they're all kind of 100% truthful. So it's as truthful as I think I'll ever get on film.
Yeah, that was another question I had, was that the family dynamic in this is really interesting. It's also like very frank. I don't know how frank it gets. Every time I see this in an American film, I'm like, oh, they're just doing that for fun. The families don't talk to each other like this.
Yeah.
But did your family or do families in general talk like this in Ireland?
Yeah, I think so. I think Irish people, we do swear a lot, which I'm kind of used to tempering now when I talk to, Americans or English, but we swear a lot, and we can be it's kind of like, it's a nice mixture of extremely pent up and repressed and quite frank. I think it's kind of the best description of Ireland. So yeah, I think a lot of the stuff in this is very true. A lot of the conversations are true to life. Even there's a very bizarre sex ed video in this run by a nun.
Oh my God!
But that's like based on a real video.
That was one of my questions. Yeah. I had to know if that was real.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's too bizarre to be real, but it was real. It was made in the 90s or in the 80s, but they still played it. So I watched the real version in the 90s when I was I think I was 12 when I was shown it. And it is like all the really bizarre things are true to life. It's kind of like Ireland is very bizarre in many ways. And I think very often the most absurd stuff is realistic in life anywhere. But yeah, so yeah, families are pretty frank, and nuns give sex ed. That's Ireland.
Is they're drinking tea right as they're in mid-coitus.
That was sort of what I was thinking. Like there's sort of a reality, like exaggeration wheel where like you look at it and it's like, man, this is so exaggerated. But then I was thinking to myself, this might actually be real. I've seen videos like this that are just that people think they're helping and they're just being insane during it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always find, I think very often for me, comedy is the most truthful, because those absurd moments do just ring so honestly and true to life. You know, I often find it like an Armandi and Yuchi type thing. Like Veep is more honest than say the West Wing. You know, it's a more honest, like kind of
Right.
view of politics would be. And I think with this, you know, rather than those kind of, yeah, as much as I love many of them, but those kind of quite po-faced, dour coming out stories, they didn't reflect my experience. My experience was very tragic and very funny and very cringeworthy. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the screen.
Yeah, during the logos of this movie, there's a smattering of audio where I was wondering if that was sort of the summary of what you were hearing back in the '90s about gay life and everything. And is that sort of true?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the time, absolutely. I think, you know, and you know, even when you're watching sitcoms at the time, whether they be American or English, there was so much kind of passive homophobia in them. And then in Ireland, you know, it was it was only in 1993 that Ireland decriminalized homosexuality. So, you know, it wasn't like grew up kind of being taboo. You grew up being criminal. And I think that was a big legacy for a lot of my generation going into adulthood, was just, you know, coming from this extremely Catholic country that had not yet begun to liberalize, really. I think this film is set at the beginning of what would be the liberalization of Ireland. So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that stuff, you know, growing up with those AIDS ads and those really tragic kind of representations of being gay, were your only touchstone for gay people, and it was never a funny or happy representation. And I think that does inform how you experience the world around you at that time. But you know, I think what I found really interesting is, even though I set this, you know, because I love the '90s and it was kind of nostalgic for me, I was really struck by how much my younger cast, many of them who were still in school, how much they kind of responded to the film, and how much of their own experiences rang true to what was going on in the film. I think, you know, I don't think kids learn like morality until they're about 18, and they're generally just, can I say arseholes? They're arseholes.
Yes.
You can say whatever you like.
Well, I said it twice. So their kids are just innately quite mean, and you know, when they're being funny, and they don't often know the hurt they're causing. But I think if you're struggling with your identity, the stuff that happens around you can have a massive impact. And I think that's what both Eddie and Amber in the film are going through, is, you know, they're just kind of surrounded by this passive onslaught of kind of toxic masculinity and kind of homophobia and just general crap.
Yeah, and it's really encapsulated in several moments, but one just tiny moment where Amber says, "This is the longest I have been. It's been since I've been called a lesbian, and except for after a tragic event happened." And she doesn't seem like somebody whom that would affect all that much, but you can tell that it does. Just something like that over and over and over. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
And this relationship has saved her just the grief of constantly getting that. It's just really amazing how you can encapsulate that in such a tiny moment in time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, that kind of constant onslaught just affects you. It doesn't matter how confident you think you are. And obviously in this film, you know, Amber, played brilliantly by Lola Petticrew, she's, you know, the more confident person. I mean, she's kind of definitely more at ease with being queer. She just can't ever consider being queer where she grew up, and she wants to escape. And it's the opposite for Eddie, who just can't consider being queer, full stop. Yeah, even for her, I think it's just you need a break, you need a reprieve, and that's what this relationship gives them. And then it gives them so much more. They end up forming this great first love. I mean, it's a love story for me, albeit platonic. They are each other's first love. They help shape who the other one's going to become, and it's a beautiful relationship. I really like that.
That's sort of what I was thinking about this relationship is that it is almost like people who are dating, except for the things that the things that people talk about when they're dating, like when do we have sex or when do we start having sex. There, instead of having sex, the discussion revolves around when do we start telling people that we've had sex. And even up to other certain moments, it felt like, you know, it felt like very real, like maybe they weren't dating in the traditional sense, but everything else about that relationship was like dating and everything. I thought it was an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's obviously it's based on a lie, but a hugely honest relationship, and the most honest relationship either of them have ever had, because they can actually be themselves with each other. And I really love that. I mean, I always see this film in a way as a romantic comedy. You know, it is. You know, it is this big romantic comedy between these two kids. They just, you know, they just don't fancy each other.
Yeah. How did you come about casting for this? There's you know, you have two dynamic leads here, Fionn O'Shea, Lola Petticrew, and a wonderful supporting cast in this. So how did you come along with finding these people?
I mean, it was a big, you know, all my anxiety with this film was kind of wrapped in finding the right Eddie and Amber. I think, you know, the film really hangs on their shoulders, and I felt like if they weren't right, or if you didn't believe their chemistry, the film just wouldn't work. So we did a really long casting to find the right Eddie and Amber, and, you know, we got hundreds of self-tapes, and Lola and Fionn both self-taped, and they were amazing. But then we did a chemistry read between the kind of top 4 boys and 4 girls, and brought them in twos, and just saw all these different pairings and saw which was the right one. And once we saw Lola and Fionn together, it was really lightning in a bottle. They were just extraordinary. And then we just had a really long, like 6 months of kind of rehearsal, which was just a way for me to make sure they were becoming friends. But like, they really quickly became best friends. I mean, I remember I was scouting for a location with my DP, Rory, and we bumped into Fionn and Lola on the streets of Dublin drinking wine from a sippy cup. And I was like, yeah, these guys are friends now. We did our job. So, yeah, like they even spent lockdown together. Like they're literally inseparable. They, you know, they FaceTime about 4 times a day. They're just best buds, and that's lovely. But like you said, the surrounding cast is amazing. I mean, I think obviously most known in the US would be Sharon Horgan, who's based on her mother, and she's just brilliant. And I really wrote this role for her, and I think she came on board extremely early. I don't know how. I think I just about finished the first draft, and my agent sent it to her agent. Then a week later, I was having coffee with Sharon in Soho in London, going, "What the heck happened here?" Like, yeah, she was amazing, and she's so funny, but also so emotional. I think she's really playing my mother in the film, and some of the scenes just really cut straight to the heart for me. But yeah, she's brilliant, and you know, the dad, Barry Ward, and all the other kids are just hilarious. I mean, they could have their own spin-off. They're so funny.
They really are. No, I would like to see a Kev movie, if you can can work that out.
Absolutely. Let's start that campaign right now.
I have to say about the kids too, I really like these characters because they're not like really, none of them are really bad kids. They're just kids, right? Like Kev is kind of like, he would be, if you compared him to, like, you know, one of these comedies in America, he'd probably be like the Stifler, but like, he's not a jerk. He's just kind of ignorant, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Exactly. I mean, like, no, I think that's how I see it. I didn't want any kind of straightforward antagonist, because I very often think we see these kind of persecuting figures who are really anti-gay or horrible, and very often the things that hurt you most is just harm, what people think is harmless bullying, but it's actually very, very damaging. And I don't think, you know, Kev or the other kids in the film ever really know the hurt they're causing. And, you know, I like to think in a few years' time, Kev would grow up to be this really lovely, informed, enlightened man. But right now he's just an arsehole teenager. And, you know, I don't, you know, and he himself has got his own insecurities and issues. And yeah, I just didn't want some sort of stereotypical cliched bully or kind of cliched military father, because I don't think they're not my experience, at least, and they're not true to my life. And I think that's very often what you most often see in these films. But I just think the truth is very often way more nuanced than that.
I'm so glad you talked about the father. The
Yeah.
father is one of the most compelling characters in this. When you first meet him, he almost seems like Chris Cooper in American Beauty. He
Yeah.
he almost
Mhm.
seems very straightforward, demanding, and he's going to beat ass if he finds out that his son is gay or that he's failing at the physical requirements, things like that.
Mm.
And it's such a great performance because not only do you see his vulnerability in one scene in particular, but you also see his relationship with his son not being completely antagonistic. He even, encourages him, to go one way or another at one point. And I'm so glad you said that because it's such a
Mm.
complete view of a character that's not a caricature.
Yeah.
And that's refreshing to see.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's because Barry Ward, who plays Ian the dad, is an amazing actor. He's such a brilliant guy. But yeah, I mean, again, I just I think we're so often used to these quite one note military dads, and my dad was
Yeah.
in the army, and I think I would have had a lot of fear when I was a kid about what he would think of me, but actually the reality is he's the most loving, kind person, and sometimes people have difficulty knowing how to communicate the right things, but that doesn't mean their
Right.
heart is in the right place. And I think that's very much so Barry's character, the dad, is that he doesn't always say the right things, but he means the right things, and he himself is struggling with things that his dad did to him, in being quite kind of an angry military kind of person. So, yeah, I just I think it's just I wanted to make sure that you know the audience are quite clear that if Eddie did come out, his parents would be fine with it. They'd be really
Mm.
loving, but it's his own inner demons that are holding him back. It's not those people around him. He's his own antagonist, and the people around him are just navigating the world and trying to make the best of it in the best way they can, and have their own baggage and issues. Yeah, but yeah, Barry's.
Yeah. Yeah. And even God, I love scenes like this where it's almost anxiety producing to watch this movie, and I mean that in a good way
Yeah,
because you're channeling Eddie's anxiety. There's a moment, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a moment where the his mom knows. His mom absolutely knows, and she's just asking him to level with her,
yeah,
and he can't do it. You're right. He's his own antagonist. He gets in his own way. He can't do it, and it's frustrating. But then you think about his frustration.
yeah.
If I'm frustrated as a viewer, how frustrated is this guy?
I mean that scene. I mean, Sharon is so brilliant in that scene, as is Fionn. But that scene's one of those scenes that is very much so based on like a real situation with my mum, and I think it
Mm,
really speaks to a lot of parents to gay kids, where they might have a hint or they might know, but they don't know how to I guess broach it with their child. And I
right.
think there's that big fear of you have to let the kid or the adult or whoever come out in their own way in their own time, and you don't want to like say you're gay because that can be really damaging. So it's just it's this mother in the 90s trying to be really loving and supportive but not knowing what the best thing to do is. And I just think that's really, it speaks really truthfully, I think, to my parents and most parents of queer kids, who are
Mm.
trying to do the best, but again, they just don't know what the best thing is, and it's a hard situation to navigate. But yeah, I think that's one of the scenes that always makes me tear up, just because it's so kind of true to my own life.
Oh, can I tell you? It's the last thing I'll say. I'm sorry, but I cried like a baby at the end of this movie. I
Good,
absolutely cried my
good,
eyeballs out.
good. I wanted you to cry.
Oh my God. I knew it. I knew it. As soon as I was doing it, I was like, oh, yeah, he wants this.
Yeah, that's
And God, I just couldn't help myself.
and no, it is like it's a hopeful ending without giving it away, but it is. It's about, like, going back to what I was saying about it being a romantic comedy, and it's a big tear jerking romance in a way, and you're letting go to let somebody move on, and yeah, it's and
I'm
again,
getting teared up right now.
you
Stop it.
know, that day was really special on set, just watching Fionn and Lola do those scenes. They're just so good.
Mm.
when you have a cast like that, you kind of just point the cameras and watch it happen. It's amazing.
I really like the period detail, by the way, in this too. 1995 was the year I graduated high school.
Oh wow, okay.
Some things in there that were fun. There's references to both Oasis and Blur in this, in this, and so I'm wondering, for the record, whose side were you on? In
Blur, always Blur.
Yep.
It's only Blur. Yeah, they're better musicians, less laddie, less macho, kind of just generally better. And like, I was a really big Blur fan, and a really big.
This is the correct answer. This is absolutely the correct answer.
Yeah.
The
guys who liked Oasis were the guys who scared me. So
the reference to zines, which I didn't think I'd ever hear that word ever again. That was something that was amazing. Just the casual reference to like anarchy and stuff like that. Those were very, very true to my high school experiences.
No, mine too. I kind of grew up in the tail end of zines, but I love that Lola wants to, set up a zine and like an anarchist book with franchise potential, which is such a ridiculous.
and of course, she gets asked like, can you make money doing that? And she's like, oh yeah, loads of money.
Yeah, no, I know it's but I mean, I think that's just being. I mean, even now, I'm sure it's with different things like YouTube channels, but that you're just a delusional child, and I'm really fond of teenage pretension because I was a very pretentious teenager, and I love that there's a real idiocy with it, even though I think it can create the foundation of really smart, brilliant, informed people. But I like that she's really like pretentious. Because I think teenagers are brilliant when they're pretentious. We all were, and it's amazing. I wanted her to be as pretentious as they come, but in the most loving way.
There's a scene at the beginning of this where there, he's riding on his bike and he goes in. He sort of. Doesn't notice that he's going into an open firing range. Is that something that you can do?
That happened to me. So I grew up. That town that the film is set in, it's called the Curragh Barracks, and I grew up there. And it is actually it's an active military town. So you're always like around tanks and soldiers and firing ranges, and then there's points where you're not allowed to go through the firing ranges. But frequently you would cycle not realizing there's live ammo kind of warning signs and stuff. And I don't know how I made it through alive, to be honest. That's definitely one that's true to life. And it's a weird environment because it's a normal like little town like you would have in America or Ireland or anywhere, but you're just surrounded by guns. Well, actually, sorry, not so abnormal for America, but definitely in Ireland it's unusual. It's a really weird place, and I just love it. It's a really beautiful kind of 18th or kind of 20th century red brick, kind of turn into 20th century red brick town. It's kind of like a Wes Anderson town come to life. It's like, it's like a toy town. And I just love it. And I've always wanted to bring it to the screen. So it's been a big, long ambition of mine to bring the Curragh to cinema.
Well, I'll tell you, I have never wanted to go somewhere more after watching a movie than this. Those hills that they run up on and just, look over the pastures and everything. God, I mean, it's a tourism commercial for that part of Ireland. It's gorgeous.
I feel like I need to be paid by the tourism board.
Right.
But it's a weird place because, it's really beautiful. And, you grow up not realizing how beautiful it is until you kind of go away. But it's one of those places, it's kind of bypassed by the roads. So it's one of those places in Ireland you drive by without ever going through. So it's kind of like a hidden treasure in Ireland itself. People don't really know how beautiful the Curragh is, unless you're from Kildare like I am. So it's kind of nice just being able to show people how lovely it is, because it really is stunning. It's one of the biggest open plains in Europe. I think it might be the second biggest.
Wow.
And it's just stunning. And, it's, I mean, it's covered in sheep shit, but it's stunning.
I'm sorry that I was not able to find this before asking you, but who plays his brother? Who plays Eddie's brother in this?
Oh, he's an absolute icon. His brother's
Is he?
His brother's played by Evan O'Connor, this is his very first role. He's only like 13.
Oh my God, he's so funny in this.
So funny. He's gonna get snapped up by some like Judd Apatow or somebody. Like, he's so funny, and he ad libs unlike anybody I've ever seen. Like, you're watching him just ad lib with Sharon Horgan going, "What the hell is going on?" It's amazing. I mean,
Its
weird.
timing is perfect.
Oh, his timing.
Oh.
The minute I think after Eddie and Amber, that was the hardest role to cast, because you're essentially having a young kid talk about things like fingering, which could be which could be really gross if it's not in the right hands. But his comedy timing is so funny. We would break the sets would just break out in laughter very often after the take. He was just and he's a really. He's not like, this is his first role. I think he'll go into a very big career, but he's such an on-phased kid. He just comes in going, "What's that? Oh, it's a Nintendo. What's a Nintendo? Oh, okay." And then and then leaves, and like, he's just so unfazed by everything and so brilliant. I kind of want to do an outtake, because his outtakes are the best.
Probably my favorite scene of this movie. There's a lot of great scenes, but my favorite scene of this movie has got to be when Eddie and Amber go to his room, and his mom's like, "Keep the door open," and then he immediately follows by saying, "Oh, well, they haven't had sex yet," and she's like, "Jesus Christ," and then he's like, "Oh, all he's done is fingered her." And it's just so matter of fact and everything.
He is genuinely one of the funniest finds, I think, ever. All his scenes are brilliant. I just think he's
well, and that's a moment that works a couple different ways too, because I mean, it is really funny, but also that does actually make sense. I mean, a lot, he's just one of those kids that's like doesn't understand these adult things, but feels like he does.
Yeah.
It felt like he would actually say something like that in that moment. I also liked the little running bit where he kept letting his brother know that people were talking about him, and he would try to like soften it, but then he would actually make it worse. He was like, well, actually, it is everybody. Like,
he's really he really is just brilliant. He's just so good. I'm kind of in awe. And he's kind of, I always, in the script even, I think that character, Jack, the younger brother, he's kind of like the Greek chorus in the film. He's kind of just there to matter-of-factly say things, like, in a very funny way. Like, everyone else has these kind of nuanced kind of arcs, and he's just there to say it really bluntly, and I just love that.
Yeah, I get the sense that, in a few years, people are going to find this movie if they hadn't previously and go, "Wow, look at all the people that are in this movie."
Yeah. I mean, I do think we have the cream of the crop when it comes to young Irish actors. I just think, whether it be Evan who plays Jack, or Ian O'Reilly who plays Kev, or the girls, Emma and Anastasia who played Janet and Tracy. They're so funny and so good. And
yeah,
I think they all have really bright futures ahead of them. But we just got so lucky, because I think with a comedy, you need every role to work, or sometimes you just have a dud scene. And in this, we just had, like, even our extras were funny. Like, there's a scene in the cinema where you have a bunch of extras giving hand jobs in the background. And I was like, they just were committed extras. They just went. And I was, and that only works if you have good background actors, and very often you can't get that many. And we just got really lucky.
Can I ask you about the brothel? The sex caravan that
sex caravan.
Yeah.
Figuring out what you were talking about there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just such a it's almost just assumed. Nobody really questions it. Nobody really asks if this is the right thing to do. She just says this is a place for horny teenagers to go,
Yeah,
and she's profiting off of it.
yeah.
And it's just absolutely like, well, it seems like her mom even kind of knows about it. But like, it's how does that factor into your script when you're writing this? Like, you know what? Let's put a sex caravan in there
Yeah, I mean,
too.
I just think, if we're going to talk about modern cinema, I think it's the tragic lack of sex caravans that's really dragging it. Yeah, I kind of love that she has this escape plan. She's making money to leave, and
Yeah.
she's got access to these caravans. She's got access to lots of horny teenagers that need places to have sex to make some money. I love that. Amber is, even though she wants to be a punk, she'll grow up to be a brilliant businesswoman. Like she's just got a, it's just got a capitalist streak, and it's manifested very early. But yeah, but that, like, I mean, I didn't have a sex caravan, but kids are horny and they'll do it anywhere, and it just makes fun. It was good.
It's funny because for a comedy that's so focused on sex, there's very little sex shown,
Very little sex shown,
except for one very I don't like this word, but tender moment with Amber and the girl she meets, and it goes to show that you don't have to go there in order to show a coming of age, especially a sexual coming of age, for people. That scene with Eddie on stage, just coming to terms with a part of himself, is every bit as effective as a raunchy sex scene in an otherwise lesser comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wanted to make sure that we weren't shying away from sex, and that if you're going to have a film in which the two central characters are a lesbian and a gay guy, you want to make sure that you give them the opportunity to explore that side of themselves, and I think we give that to both the characters. But then and I think that I think, as you mentioned, there's really tender sexual moments in this, and I think it should be. But then sex, particularly when you're that age, is also just really bad and funny. And like, I think I'm pretty sure I could be in the Guinness Book of Records for the amount of hand jobs I've now directed. Yeah, I think all those things, sex at that age is, it's eye-opening, it's really tender and sweet. It can be really frightening, as it is sometimes in the film. It can be really funny and just ridiculous, as it is in the film. And I think you want to show that kind of breadth of experience. And look, I don't want to direct a porno, so I was never going to get too explicit with it. But
Right.
it is that thing. You don't want to shy away from it, but it's not the focus of the film. But yeah,
the movie theater scene though, where they're like just them in the foreground, just like eating popcorn, watching the movie while all that's going on, though, is just, it's brilliant.
It was so much fun. And then it's like it's the saddest film they're watching. I think the film they're watching is about a person dying of cancer, and it's just like, it's the most inappropriate, inappropriate film to be having a hand job. But that's what happened in that cinema back then. Tragically, I was never cool enough, but teenagers used to go to the cinema to do that stuff, and it's true to life as well as being really funny. It was the most weird day on set. So I was like with my AD going, how do I direct this? Like, how do I direct these guys to do that? Like, what do I do? But it was great. It was fun.
I know that this is mostly autobiographical. Well, not mostly autobiographical. It's based on real things and whatnot. But did you feel any pressure when you were writing this to give Eddie any kind of like love interest? Because I think a lot of times these movies try to find their way to their happy ending through a love interest of some sort, and I found it refreshing that it didn't do that.
Yeah, I think his journey is about coming to terms with who he is and kind of going, without giving it away. It's self-acceptance, and you don't find that in somebody else, And I think when you do first come out, you're very often not yet in that place to be with somebody else. It just, you can be lucky, but it's very rare. First you come out and then you go find somebody, or, find yourself. And so that was never really, just because it is so honest to life, and, that that didn't happen to me. So, I think for me, that wasn't his journey. I mean, he has a really sweet moment. He has probably the best first kiss in a gay club, and he has great moments, but yeah, it wasn't about, for him, that wasn't his journey. It's a love story between him and Amber, and I wanted to keep that the focus. It's very much so about these two kids, and yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to give him a boyfriend at the end, because I think that would have. I think you mentioned, but it would have just felt expected. It kind of feels like that's what happens, and it's not the story I was telling.
Yeah, if this movie was made here, that's exactly what would have happened. I have a feeling, and it just doesn't. You're right; it doesn't seem true to life, really.
Yeah.
If that's the case, but
wait for the bastardized remake. They can do it in there.
yeah, exactly. So, guys, do you have anything else to ask?
I did want to ask you real quick, if you don't mind, the movie you did before this, The Cured.
Yeah.
Which, even though that's about, zombies, there's a lot of similar themes here.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's, it's kind of a horror drama about, cured zombies. But I mean, for me, that film was all about struggling with your inner monster. And I made it at a time when I wasn't as at peace with myself. So it feels like it's the other side of the coin to dating Amber. It's kind of, I was at a point when I was a very angry, frustrated man, and now I hope a more enlightened man. I can make the comic version of that. But yeah, I think it's, it's definitely similar themes. I think, I don't know if, it's funny because Dating Amber, which originally was called Beards, I wrote it quite a long time ago, and there was a time that it actually could have been my first film, but just, financing happens in different ways. And but once I made The Cured, I went straight back to try to get financing for Dating Amber, because it was such a passion project of mine. But I was thinking recently, had I had the opportunity to make it first, would it be as good? Would it be as funny? I don't know if I had the distance yet to tell that story. I think there's that thing of, tragedy plus time equals comedy, and I just think I don't think I had enough time yet to make that film as well as I wanted to make it. So I'm kind of quite grateful it wasn't my first feature, because I think it's much better now that I have had all that.
Yeah.
And also, you learn so much on your first film. You kind of learn a lot of lessons that you bring to your second film. So yeah, so I'm kind of glad the way things worked out.
I just remember when that came out, that was, there was obviously a lot of zombie movies coming out and TV shows and whatnot. And I remember kept thinking, I wish somebody would do one about, if they actually got cured, because I just had kind of this moment in my mind, people that were around them would be like, I get that you couldn't help what you were doing, but you still ate my mom.
Yeah.
And I can't forgive you for that. That kind of thing. And I know this is more of a drama, but it was a really cool movie. Really cool take on the zombie subgenre.
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of it. I mean, it was a fun one to make. It was really good to make. I mean, there's always chatter about revisiting it in TV or something, but it was great. But yeah, I think it's if I was going back to make it now, I'd put a few more jokes in it, just because. I think if you're going to be honest about life, you're going to have humor in it. It doesn't matter how tragic things are. There's always humor, and I think that's I think going forward in my career. Even if it's quite dark material, I think there'll be a bit more humor in them, just because I like doing humor.
I was just going to ask if there was any particular day where there was some, the hardest shooting day that you had. What was the biggest challenge that you had when you were shooting this?
I mean, we had an amazing, we got so lucky with this. We had a very tight 5-week shoot. So it was very tight, 24 or 5 days shooting. But we worked, because we rehearsed it so much with the actors, we managed to get through scenes really quickly and had time to play as well. So everything ran really smoothly. I think the only day we had real difficulty was I wrote Amber drives and Lola cannot drive. So we had to get Yeah, so we had to get like a low loader, but the low loader we got, because we had no money, well, we had money, we had very little, it couldn't reverse. So we kept having to drive around this massive kind of estate for every time she said goodbye. Like, it was the simplest scene. Like, we ended up eating up time and time. So we had to lose one scene, which was a dinner scene where the mother kind of looks kind of sadly at her son, knowing kind of what he's going through. We had to scrap it. So when it's the end of the day, we were losing light. We're like, quick, Fionn, just run over to the swing and look really depressed. And we you want to give every scene time, and you try not to give your actors an emotion, which you try, but sometimes you just have to shout and they go, just look sad. So, yeah, but we had such a fun, like, genuinely every single day on that film was a holiday. It was so much fun. Again, because we had a great cast, great crew, and it really did. I'd say my next film is going to be an absolute nightmare, because I took all my luck on that one.
It translates, though. I found myself genuinely loving this movie, even though, because of all the things that you've said. It's emotional, but sometimes it's just laugh out loud funny.
Yeah,
and it's so true to life, and the characters are so enmeshed. You could tell that joy that you guys had translates through the screen just delightfully. So
yeah,
bravo.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we had so much fun. I think we're all really proud of it. I think and it's been really nice, because it came out in the UK earlier, like in May. It came out. And we just keep, even daily now, we're still getting fan art and fan videos and like messages. It's just really hit a chord with surprisingly for me. I think, I expected people of my age and your age going, oh, I remember the 90s, nostalgia, great. But we're actually getting loads of kids just going how much they've loved it and responded to it, and how much they resonate with Fionn and Lola's characters, and that's not something I was expecting, and it's been a really lovely thing to have. Kind of, it's been quite cheering during this pandemic of ours.
Well, Americans are going to love it too, and this is getting released on VOD and digital. And do you know any theaters or anything like that?
It did some. It's doing some kind of virtual theaters, I think. But yeah, because of the goddamn COVID thing, even bothered me. I think it's kind of straight digital and VOD, but which is great. People can enjoy it in the comfort.
They can. Yeah, I do want to know. Do you know what you're doing next? Are you working on anything currently?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have a few TV projects in development that I'm really excited about, but I can't announce. And I've written another 2 feature scripts. One of them that we're hoping to shoot early next year, called Epping. It's a revenge comedy about a guy who tries to kill this other guy for killing his partner, but when he gets him back to his house, he can't go through it, so they end up having to live together. So it's an absurdist revenge comedy, which I'm hoping to shoot next year, and then a few other really exciting things. And I've just been kind of writing my way through this lockdown. So it's been quite nice.
I can't wait. And when the next one comes out, can you come on and talk to us again?
I would love to. Yeah, I would absolutely love that.
All right. We love you. So come back on.
We would like to thank David Freyne for giving us his time. This was wonderful. Your movie, Dating Amber, is wonderful. It comes out on November 10th. It's on demand and digital. That's going to do it for this interview. It's Chris Atkinson, Barrett Sher, and Jonathan Watkins. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.